Islam as art has been a topic of interest for Western scholars since the 19th century, and for several decades, it has also drawn the attention of Muslim scholars educated in the West. In the past 2 or 3 decades, the general public has also started recognizing it as a unique form of art. Numerous publications have emerged in various European languages discussing its history, techniques, social context, and other elements. However, only a few books and articles have explored its deeper spiritual meaning. Among these, Burckhardt's works stand out for their insights into the intellectual, symbolic, and spiritual aspects of Islamic art. Yet, there remain very few writings that interpret Islamic art as a reflection of the spiritual truths inherent in the Islamic revelation, expressed through its physical forms. In examining the relationship between Islamic art and Islamic spirituality, it is necessary to address the matter of patronage. Western readers often interpret the spiritual within the context of the dichotomy between the sacred and secular, a hallmark of Western civilization. This raises the question of why certain forms of Islamic art have not been supported by religious authorities or the mosque, but rather by the court, ruling elites, or merchant classes, typically associated with secularism in European history. To respond, it is crucial to note that Islam does not share this division between the religious and the secular. In traditional Islamic society, what are considered secular powers or elements hold religious significance within the broader framework of divine law, alongside specifically religious entities. Furthermore, there exists a more nuanced relationship concerning the patronage, use, and function of the arts, grounded in the complementarity between the mosque and the court. Certain art forms, such as Quranic recitation, sacred architecture, and calligraphy, particularly the ancient and highly formal Kufic script, are said to have originated from the mosque, symbolizing religious activity. In contrast, other art forms, including music, poetry, and miniature painting, received primary patronage from the court, though they permeated society at large. Paradoxically, the first category of art is often viewed as masculine, while the latter is seen as feminine. In the case of calligraphy, which also enjoyed courtly patronage, softer, more feminine styles are linked to courtly art, whereas more masculine, heraldic styles are associated with the mosque. This distinction is occasionally blurred when the court itself sponsored the construction of mosques and other religious institutions. Additionally, the spiritual dimension of courtly arts can only be fully understood through the influence of Sufism. Although Sufis were aligned with the mosque in their defense of the Sharia and many were part of the ulama, they also maintained deep connections with political authority without merely succumbing to worldly power. In the realm of Islamic art, Sufism played a pivotal role not by indulging in luxury or composing praise for the powerful, but by offering spiritual guidance to those in positions of authority. While some Sufi orders distanced themselves from political power, others allowed their members to hold high offices. Regardless of their stance, Sufi influence was prominent in the arts supported by royal courts. This is evident when examining the religious background of numerous miniaturists and musicians from the Safavid, Ottoman, and Mughal dynasties. The so-called feminine arts, often supported by the courts, are inherently introspective and possess a distinct spiritual quality, made possible only through the influence of Islamic esotericism. Through a complementary relationship between the mosque and the court, both contributed to the development of Islamic art, with each embodying distinct but harmonious forms. At times, these two realms merged to create masterpieces such as the royal mosques, which stand as some of the finest examples of Islamic art. The deeper the exploration into the meaning of Islamic art, the clearer the profound connection between this art form and Islamic spirituality becomes. Whether sponsored by the mosque or the court, and whether it served scholars, rulers, merchants, or peasants, traditional Islamic art was always inspired by the Muhammadan Baraka and guided by the wisdom, Hikmah, found within the inner dimensions of the Quran. To fully appreciate the significance of Islamic art is to understand that it represents an extension of the Islamic revelation. It manifests divine realities, haqqi, in material form, leading humanity through its liberating beauty toward the ultimate goal of divine proximity. The primordial creative act simultaneously manifested as the primordial word, the source of all sound and the origin of the Quran as a sonorous universe, and as the primal point, which serves as the foundation for sacred calligraphy, visually embodying the sacred word. The primordial word was not just the single command kun be, whose resonance gave birth to the universe and is preserved in the Quran as sound. It also crystallized into ink, used by the divine pen, al-Qalam, to inscribe the realities of all things, al-Hikmah, upon the guarded tablet, al-Law al-Mahfuz, the archetypal book representing the Quran as the mother of books, al-Kitab. This sacred book encapsulates the infinite potential of divine creativity. The Quran itself refers to this divine ink. If all the trees on earth were pens, and the sea, replenished by 7 more seas, were ink, the words of God could not be exhausted. Quote, just as the recitation of the Quran, as the foremost sacred sound art in Islam, serves as the source of traditional sound arts, so does the art of calligraphy, which mirrors the divine writing upon the guarded tablet, becoming the foundation of Islamic visual arts. Quranic calligraphy emerges from the Islamic revelation and reflects the soul of Islamic peoples in response to the divine message. The strokes made by the divine pen establish the celestial archetype of Quranic calligraphy and the spatial structure of the cosmos itself, from which both natural and architectural space in Islam arise. The diacritical point beneath the first letter of the Quran, Ba, symbolizes the principle behind both Islamic calligraphy and architecture, as well as the basis of sonorous and visual arts, all of which have their roots in the sacred book. The intricate points and lines of Islamic calligraphy, with their diverse forms and rhythmic patterns, are linked to the supreme divine realm, at the center of which lies the first point, the exalted word. Shihab al-Din Suhrawardi, the master of illumination, begins one of his prayers with, O Master of the Supreme Circle, from which all circles arise, all lines end, and from which the first point, thy exalted word, manifests upon thy universal form. Quote, the guarded tablet contains the archetypes of all earthly forms, particularly those of Quranic calligraphy, whose styles reflect the sacred essence of the revealed book. Islamic calligraphy is a visual manifestation of the crystallization of the spiritual realities, al-Hikmah, contained within the Islamic revelation. This art provides an external form for the Word of God in the physical world, yet remains deeply connected to the spiritual realm. As an Islamic saying goes, calligraphy is the geometry of the spirit. The letters, words, and verses of the Quran are not merely linguistic elements but are considered as beings or entities for which calligraphy serves as their physical vessel. Through the writing and recitation of these verses, humanity establishes a connection with these entities, which originate from the far reaches of existence to guide them back to the abode of the divine. In both its spoken and written forms, the Quran holds a profound significance in the life of a Muslim. The verses of the Quran are not merely words conveying ideas, but are regarded as spiritual entities, powers, or even talismans. Since the divine presence is embedded within the Quranic text, calligraphy, as the visible expression of the divine word, assists believers in accessing and being impacted by that presence according to their spiritual capacities. This sacred art allows individuals to transcend the material realm, offering a glimpse of the baraka present in the divine word and enabling them to taste the spiritual realities of the unseen world. Calligraphy, along with illumination, compensates for the physical limitations of ink and paper, serving as a medium through which the wonder and beauty of the divine essence in the Quran can be more deeply appreciated. It allows each soul, according to its spiritual capacity, to receive an experience of the infinite and eternal. Although Islamic calligraphy has evolved over time, extending beyond its original Quranic context, the intrinsic connection between this art form and the spiritual essence of the Quran has remained intact. Calligraphy has become a central and distinctive feature of Islamic visual arts, embodying the culture and intellectual depth of Islamic civilization. Over the centuries, it has come to symbolize a cultured and disciplined individual, reflecting the refinement of both mind and spirit. This art form has continued to serve as a key element of Islamic aesthetics, with its applications ranging from architecture to poetry. Islamic calligraphy, through its endless variation of points and lines, constantly evokes the remembrance dhikr of the primordial act of the divine pen, for those who are able to perceive traces of the formless within its forms. The temporal gap between the emergence of Quranic calligraphy and the revelation of the Quran itself is noteworthy. While the Quran initially existed as a sonorous manifestation of the divine word, engraved in the heart of the Prophet and transmitted through him to his companions and later generations, calligraphy emerged as an artistic response to this divine sound. This response, though based on early inspirations from figures like Ali, crystallized fully in the later major styles of Islamic calligraphy. This development reflected the deep connection between Muslims, first Arabs, followed by Persians and Turks, and the Quran, which they encountered as both a spoken and heard word of God. Unlike the pre-Islamic Arabs, who valued poetry and language but showed little interest in calligraphy, the Islamic context fostered an art form that grew to have central importance. Similarly, while pre-Islamic Persians had a written script, calligraphy did not achieve its prominence until after the spread of Islam. Thus, the rise of Arabic and Persian calligraphy is distinctly Islamic, driven by the response of the Muslim heart and soul to the Quranic revelation. Although the foundational forms of Islamic calligraphy are rooted in the hidden treasures of the divine order, their full earthly manifestation developed gradually, following the natural laws of time and space. Different styles of calligraphy evolved as expressions of the divine message's qualities, with regional variations reflecting the unique cultural genius of different parts of the Islamic world. However, these styles also display a universality that transcends regional boundaries. The early development of the Kufic or Quranic script, alongside the Naskhi script, which was not as strictly tied to the Quranic text, led to the creation of many variations. By the 4th-10th century, Ibn Nadim had already catalogued 12 scripts and their variations. Ibn Nukhla, a prominent calligrapher of the same period, formalized the rules for 6 major styles: Thulu, Nas, Rayhan, Muhaji, Tachi, and Rika, which have remained influential to this day. These styles received further refinement in the 7th-13th century under Yaqut al-Mustasimi, reflecting the permanence and immutability of Islamic art, which mirrors the enduring nature of Islamic civilization itself.